This night, like every night, I resist going to sleep to avoid meeting my nightmares. While the laughter coming from the television in the living room hits the walls of my room, I try to lie in my bed, huddled like a baby in the womb, restless as if my sheets were full of thorns. But it doesn't do me any good, because no matter how hard I try to silence the voice in my head, it insists on speaking. Even if I cover my ears with my hands, it doesn't help. This rough and deep voice, which constantly whispers that I am dead, has been making its whisper louder and louder since a time I don't remember how long ago, as if it is trying to make itself heard by everyone around me. I am afraid to look in the mirror. I am terrified that the owner of the voice will come out from somewhere inside me and hug my throat. Although I tried to explain a little to my father recently, he said, without putting down the newspaper in his hand, "These are normal. While you are thinking about this house and your future, if you entered my mind, you would think I was in a madhouse," he said, and stopped my words in my mouth. My mother, on the other hand, is only interested in the decline in my grades. How would he look at his friends' faces with these notes? What I ate was in front of me, and what I didn't eat was behind me. What sound was it? I shouldn't have told these to anyone, otherwise, God forbid, they would call me crazy, and by attaching a madness that does not exist in our family's history to me just to attract attention, I would harm their honor and their position in society. The books I read were always the reason for this. That teacher of mine, whatever his name is the reason for all these nonsense. What do I have to do with the classics? Are those books for me? Are these books that a 17-year-old child would read? Why am I tiring my brain with books written in I don't know which century, when I still have my textbooks? How will Russian novels help me? When I tell my mother to listen to me, I don't tell her anything anymore because she keeps repeating the same things to me. I'm afraid. I'm more afraid than anyone could imagine. I'm so afraid that what the voice in my brain says is true, that even while eating the food my mother cooks, I'm starting to walk around hungry because I think I'll die or that she'll poison me. When my father asked what was wrong with me last Sunday, I told him that I couldn't sleep again and that I was scared. The slight slap on the back of my neck was as heavy as a cannonball for me at that moment. My father said to me, "Is a man afraid? I wish I hadn't heard what you said. Otherwise, we change hats." "Don't be such a wimp. I don't understand who you look like," he said, and got up from the breakfast table. I was left staring after him. With the breeze of the wind turns into a huge ghost that dives into my room. Even if I close my eyes tightly, it doesn't help me at all. The ghost I see is right next to my bedside, staring at me, becoming one with the voice in my brain and telling me what to do. I can't even hear my inner prayer for my mother to come into the room anymore. Someone must cut out my brain and silence these voices, or I will cut off my own head. Also started swinging. My father and mother constantly warn me, but they turn a deaf ear to my cries for help. I must sleep, and I must sleep so deeply that I must never wake up again. Don't know how much time passed, but I suddenly woke up with a start. This wasn't my room. I'm in a gloomy, cold room with grey everywhere. The chill that sneaked into me caused my whole body to tremble. I sat up from where I was lying, pulled my legs up to my belly, and started rocking. Where was I? Had I woken up in the middle of a nightmare? Where are my mother and father? Why is the fear inside me increasing? Even though I tried hard, I couldn't remember when I wore the clothes I was wearing. I leaned my head against the wall. The wall was as cold as my insides, but I couldn't move, as if I was glued to the concrete, apart from being cold. Shaking and shaking that I couldn't stop myself from shaking. The voice in my brain had become silent after a long time. It was not speaking. For some reason, I was happy like a child. I held the top of my head with my hands. I didn't know what I was trying to do either, but it felt like everything was over. I felt the urge to fall into a deep sleep. There was only a chair and a table in the room. Well, it didn't matter. The voice in my head was silent. What would happen if I slept where I sat? I turned my eyes to the white fluorescent lamp burning on the ceiling. It was making a strange buzz. As the door opened, I turned my head in that direction. A tall and well-built man entered. I couldn't help but try to hide from him where I was sitting so he wouldn't see me, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. The man came slowly and stood right in front of me. After shaking his head slightly from side to side, he fell to his knees and looked into my eyes. Even though his expression was harsh, there was compassion in his gaze. "Have you come to your senses, Khan?" I was surprised when he asked and nodded. I did remember when I passed out and how I got here, but I decided it was okay to nod as if I had no other answer. Just then, the voice inside my brain started speaking again. "Don't say anything to him." The joy I had just felt disappeared instantly. I closed my eyes and waited for the nightmare to end. I opened my eyes with a start when a hand grabbed my arm. The man was helping me to stand up. I was obeying him like a puppet. Every part of me was numb and my tremors increased. When he approached the table, he sat me on the chair and stood in front of me and said, "Khan, do you know where you are right now?" He asked this time. I shook my head so fast that my neck hurt. Even though deep down I knew where I was, I had a hard time accepting it. I had the thought that if I denied it, my nightmare would end. The man put his hands on the table and asked the same question again. I, on the other hand, swallowed my tongue and could not get the words out of my mouth, as if I had never spoken in my life. I bowed my head. I wasn't aware of what I was doing. Suddenly I said in a weak child's voice that didn't belong to me. Even I was surprised by this, and then it became so funny that I started laughing out loud. I saw the man in front of me take a step back from the table, first his hands and then himself. I was still laughing. The voice in my brain was accompanying me, and it was laughing too. The man remained like that for a moment, then approached me from the table and said, "Come to your senses. The child psychologist and an officer from the juvenile branch will come to take your statement soon." And my laughter stopped like a knife. I looked at him. Whatever face I looked at, the man reached out his hand and attempted to caress my hair. I pulled my legs up to my stomach on the chair I was sitting on and started rocking again. Tears were flowing from my eyes involuntarily. While I didn't understand why I was crying, the man said in a compassionate tone, "Cry, don't stress yourself. You will relax." Even though I didn't understand why he said that, I continued to cry and shake. The voice in my mind was telling me that everything was over now, that I shouldn't be afraid, and that we would do more together from now on. But I was still very afraid. I was covering my ears with my hands. The more I tried not to hear him, the louder he got. I never noticed when the door opened or when the man and woman entered. When the woman who came touched my shoulder, I almost fell off my chair with fear. He was looking at me strangely, his black eyes fixed on me. I could hear his voice from far away, as if in a dream, telling me to relax and that there was no reason to be afraid. The first man left the room and came back with a chair in his hand. The woman sat in this chair, faced me and said, "I'm going to ask a few questions, but you don't have to answer them if you don't want to. My name is Zeynep. I am a psychologist. What is your name?" I got scared when he asked my name. The voice in my mind was telling me that he would hurt me, and that I shouldn't answer his questions, but I said it. "Good, good," the woman nodded, as if talking to herself. Then he smiled slightly and said, "Khan, do you remember what you did before coming here?" she asked. When he asked this question, I shook my head quickly again, closed my eyes, and hugged my legs, which I pulled to my stomach with my arms. My shaking was getting stronger, even though I didn't want it to. The woman held my hand on my leg and said, "The clothes you are wearing look very good on you. Can you tell me where you bought them?" she said. At that moment, I realized that the clothes I was wearing did not belong to me. I stood up and said in fear, "These don't belong to me." I started shouting. At the same time, I was trying to take off the sweater I was wearing. Everyone in the room gathered around me and started talking in a language I didn't understand. The voice in my mind kept telling me to stay away from them. I couldn't take off the outfit. When I got tired, I collapsed at the bottom of the table and lay down to the right side in a fetal position. The woman was sitting on her knees next to me, telling me to calm down, that they wouldn't hurt me, and to tell me what I knew. As for me, nothing came out of my mouth other than the word mother, again in that childish voice. The woman pulled my hair from my face and asked, "Khan, what happened to your mother?" Screaming. Suddenly, I felt frozen in place. as if concrete had been poured on me. I wasn't shaking anymore. The voice kept repeating the same sentence, getting louder. This couldn't be real. I was definitely in a nightmare. Otherwise, why couldn't I talk? I was just repeating this word as if all words except mother had been erased from my memory. The woman was holding my arm and trying to get me up from the ground. The man who came with him was just watching me. I was afraid of him. There was something different in his look. Suddenly, something came to my mind. I didn't know if it was real or a dream, but I saw my mother in the living room. She was lying on the floor. There was blood everywhere. I touched him, hugged him, but I don't know if I cried. At that moment, I saw a woman coming out of the terrace door that opened to the garden of our house. Or was it a man? She was dressed in black. But it's not real. I know it's not real. It's just a nightmare. I'll wake up soon and take a look at the ridiculous TV series my mother is watching and try to talk to her again and enter my room scared. It will definitely be like that. It can't be otherwise. It shouldn't be. The voice in my head said, "It finally happened," he says and laughs. "Look, you got rid of your mother." He was screaming. The woman was looking at my face. "Khan, did you remember something? Please try to sit down and tell me what you remember. I want to help you," he said, stroking my hair. For the first time in a long time, someone wanted to help me. "I'm afraid," I managed to say. The woman told me not to be afraid, that she was there for me. "Please let me help you. Let's sit on that chair first." I was afraid that if I got into the chair, what I saw would come true. When I nodded, the woman sat on the ground. "Have you ever left the house today? Have you seen your friends? Your mother? Your father? My friends found you wandering around the empty streets screaming. Do you remember?" When he said this, I felt as if someone else had done it, and I had watched it. I shook my head up and down, trying to tell him I remembered. "Good," he said and continued his speech. "So, do you remember what you said when you shouted?" I didn't remember. The voice in my mind kept saying that I did it, but I didn't know what I did. "Look, dear, you keep repeating the same words." "I didn't do it. Don't you understand? You were shouting. I didn't do it." The voice in my brain started screaming. It kept saying, "You did it. Don't deceive yourself for nothing." I started looking at the woman's face to avoid hearing the voice. I forgot what her name was, but it didn't matter. He looked at me and said, "Do you believe that I will help you?" When I said that, I shook my head quickly. He grabbed my arm again and tried to lift me up. This time I followed him and sat on the chair. My hair fell in my face. He extended his hand and straightened it back affectionately. I felt like I was combing my hair. Suddenly, an image from my childhood accompanied my tears. The day I started kindergarten, my mother lovingly combed my hair backwards in this way. I was trying to focus on the woman with empty eyes. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to listen to him instead of the voice in my head. Something I saw in his eyes made me look at him. "Khan, do you remember the question I asked? Could you please tell me as much as you remember?" Yes. Yes, I was going to tell you. Finally, with difficulty, I was able to say, I don't hear you. I hear the voice in my head. I'm scared, very scared. Do you hear that sound too? Are you afraid too?" "I'm here to help you not be afraid," he said softly. "I don't hear the sound. What does it tell you? That we will do more things, that we are free now. And he always says you did it. But I didn't do anything. I didn't." Now I was screaming too. "What does he tell you he did? He just says you did it. He doesn't say anything else." "Okay. Can you tell me when was the last time you saw your mother and father?" "My father, I didn't see him today. My mother was watching TV series and laughing at home. Did you tell him you were going out?" "No, I didn't tell him, because he was lying in the living room covered in blood." I shook him, hugged him. There was a knife somewhere. "Go on, my dear. I'm listening to you. Don't be afraid. Look, I'm helping you. Do you understand? Please look into my eyes. Look at me." As I hugged my mother, that knife went deeper. "I heard your voice, but it was a dream. It's not real. I always have nightmares like this. The voice in my brain tells me that no one will understand me, and that if I tell them they will call me crazy. But I don't listen to that either. How many times have I told my mother and father the voices in my mind? Even they didn't believe that I was afraid. These are normal. That's why only I know my nightmares. I don't tell anyone. This is also a nightmare. I will wake up soon and go to my mother." "I know I will go. Of course you will. But now try to remember what happened in that nightmare. Then you will go. I will help you. I was in my room. trying to sleep. I think I did. A person does not have nightmares when he is awake. I was sleeping in my dream. I woke up with the sound of something breaking and walked towards the living room. My mother was lying on the floor right in front of the couch. There was blood everywhere. I was scared, but I went and sat next to him, shouted and hugged him, but he wasn't looking at me from in front of the door leading to the terrace. I was trying to put my mother down and wipe the blood off my hands. I was crying. I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't. The person I saw came to me, picked me up from the ground and took me to the bathroom, turned on the tap, and I started washing the blood off my hands. Then he helped me, took off my clothes and put them in his dirty basket. Saw his hands for the first time. They had black gloves. He left me there, and just as I was walking out of the bathroom door, he said to me, "You killed your mother?" I said, "This is a nightmare." While I was thinking, why would I kill my mother, the voice in my mind started saying, "Remember, she didn't love you." I didn't want to hear this. My mother loved me, and this was just a nightmare. I was going to ask when I woke up, but it still continues. "I'm cold now. Help me wake up. I promise I won't tell my mother if I hear a voice again. Even if I hear it, I won't say it. I want to wake up, okay? Honey, calm down." So, do you know the person you saw in your nightmare? Don't rush. Think for a while. No, I do not know. Do you know everyone you see in your dreams? Of course I don't know, but sometimes a very small detail can guide us when we wake up in the morning. Nothing like that happens in my nightmares, because I don't remember most of them because of fear. But look, you remember this. Think again. Was he skinny? Tall? What color were his eyes and hair? Did you hear your mother say anything? No, I didn't hear. Don't you understand? This is just a nightmare. Why should I be careful? I forget all about it when I wake up, okay? Honey, calm down a bit. I hear and understand you very well, but please remember that I am here to help you. I suddenly felt ashamed. For the first time, someone believed the voices I heard and my terrible nightmares. He was dressed in black, I said, trying to look at him again. He covered his hair and had a balaclava on his face. She was skinny like you. She was as tall as my aunt. My aunt. If my aunt was in a nightmare, why would she hurt my mother? That's ridiculous. This nightmare must end. What am I saying? Why can't I wake up yet? This is very realistic. This is the first time this has happened. I never felt cold in my nightmares, but now I'm freezing, and the voice inside my head says this is real, not a nightmare. It's not real, is it? Answer me. This can't be true. Or is my mother really dead? I started shaking again, and without realizing it, I was crying. Something inside me hurt. Have you ever felt pain in nightmares? I am so sorry, Khan. The friends who found you in your underwear on the street put you on and brought you here to the police station. He didn't have any identification on him. When our friends found you and investigated the area, they learned that you lived in the upper neighborhood and went to see your family. The outer door of your house was open, and your mother was literally lying in the living room covered in blood. They informed your father. He couldn't come right away because he was out of town, but his plane is about to land these days. As soon as your father arrives, we will take you to the hospital and keep you under observation. Believe me, I am very sorry. I couldn't hear her anymore. My mother wasn't there anymore. And since I was here and the voice in my mind said you did it, I had killed my mother. No, this won't happen. Definitely not. Why would I kill my mother? I suddenly stood up and everyone in the room was looking at me. I started shouting. Who was that dressed in black and washing my hands? He hurt my mother. I can't do such a thing. I only hear voices and I have nightmares and I'm scared. But I didn't do anything to my mother. Do you understand? I no longer understood what was being said. Their lips were moving. They were holding my hand, but I couldn't hear them. I collapsed on the ground, pulled my knees to my chest, and hugged my feet with my arms. I was falling into a dark well. I was scared at first, but now I was strangely at peace. It was like a wall had been built around me, and I wasn't going to let anyone inside that wall. While I was looking out the window of my room, I did not turn my head, even though I heard the door opening. I wasn't talking at all anymore. Since I was brought here, I was just trying to comply with the mandatory things the nurses and doctors did to me. The voice in my brain was completely silent, and I felt like an emptied animal. When I heard a voice other than my father and my doctor, I started listening without moving. I recognized the owner of the voice. It was the voice of the woman who believed me for the first time in that strange little room. What was its name? I couldn't remember. I started listening. Doctor, we are very happy that our patient is improving. I wanted to give you information and visit to see Khan. I didn't believe he was the murderer, even though I turned towards them as soon as I heard this last sentence. They did not notice it. My father was shaking his head, but my doctor was listening to the woman as intently as I was. I held my breath and continued listening. In line with the information Khan gave, our friends from the police started to investigate the incident in depth. Although the killer tried not to leave any clues, we found 2 different footprints in the house. The first blood-soaked footprint next to the victim was Khan's, but there was a different footprint. Even though the stride length was faint, it was 60 centimeters. This indicated that our killer was approximately 1 meter and 60 centimeters tall. While talking to me, Khan mentioned a person dressed in black and said that she was like my aunt. As part of the investigation, we interrogated all relatives, neighbors, and everyone who had contact with the family. In the end, we saw that Khan was not wrong. It was really her aunt who killed her mother. The reason is the inheritance case. Was remembering this. My aunt kept saying that she was treated unfairly and that my mother got more share. However, the inheritance was divided equally. Only my grandmother left her diamond necklace and earrings to her first child, my mother. A year ago, my aunt asked my mother for the necklace, and when my mother said it belonged to her, the argument turned into a fight. Strangely, as I focused on listening to the conversation, remembering that day in every detail, I was surprised to see my father's regret for the first time. There were tears in his eyes. He was also listening to the woman with all his ears. I am sorry to say, Doctor, Khan also told his aunt that he heard voices and had nightmares that were close to reality. He also tried to kill his sister and blame it on the child, but he could not guess that the child could talk. He expressed that he thought no one would believe him even if he talked. I am very happy for Khan. If his treatment goes well, he will be able to hold on to life again. I will try to take part in his life as much as I can. After finishing his words, he looked at me. When I saw the unconditional love in his eyes, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. Thank you, I said in a voice that made even me shudder. I cannot tell you what a great favor you have done by believing in me. If I had killed my mother, rest assured, I would have taken the first opportunity I had to avoid breathing again. My father and the woman approached me and told me that everything would be okay. My doctor told them how I would get better as long as I continued my treatment. I wanted this too. My greatest hope was to heal, start a new life, and forget the past completely. When I felt my father's strong hand on my shoulder, I held on to this hope even more. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. See you in future videos. Take care.